Hey guys, Walter Fedczuk here to tell you that Unicorn.com may be the world's premier esports betting site, but they're also your best bet for keeping up with all the esports you love. With their site's newest update, they've reinvented their Live Now system and created a TV guide style layout to find out when your favorite teams will be playing next. And if that isn't simple enough, they've even added a search bar to help filter it down even further. And even if you aren't a gambling fan, Unicorn's newest update is a must-have for any esports fan. And you might even discover your favorite new writer in their news section, where you've got my man Drowlin with some excellent CSGO content, and you can find some fantastic articles from my lovely co-host, Chase Wassenar, as well. So check out the new layout at Unicorn.com, because there are few places where you can stay up to date on all your favorite esports, and Unicorn can help. Unicorn.com. Welcome to the new Sportsbook.
Hello, Internet! My name is Walter Ceades Fedczuk, and welcome to our 2017 Summer Split European LCS Week 1 Guess the Lines episode. I am so jacked. If you can't tell by the punctuation of my hand, by my volume, by my intensity, I am so jacked because we're done with MSI, a tournament that I care absolutely nothing about. There were no IEMs, and there will never ever be another IEM for League of Legends. Rest in pepperonis. We're done with the team-by-team previews. We're done putting everything out on the line. Now we get to some actual games. We actually get to break down some games. We get to see how players and teams have improved in the offseason, how they're going to face off against each other. And we are now officially on the road to Worlds. And I can't think of anybody else that I would rather talk to about and kick his butt again for the third time in a row than my good friend and co-host, Chase, RedShirtKing, Wassenar. Chase, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Is this the time where I remind you that I'm leading our Guess the Line series 4-3 overall over the 7 seasons / tournaments in which we've held this competition? Is it now, or
No.
do I wait until like week 5 or 6 to bring this up?
See, you don't get to bring it up because I'm the champion. I have the belt right now. I have the metaphorical belt wrapped around my waist, and who cares? People always down-cry the Yankees for living in the past. Chase, stop living in the past. Live in the present. Get better. Stop making excuses, and you could try to take me down, but it's not going to happen at all.
I mean, we'll certainly have to see. I'm excited about both this competition and this split. I think that in Europe in particular, just having 2 brand new teams enter the picture is massive. I think that both Giants and Origin were incredibly flawed. I think both of these rosters have higher ceilings than those teams did. And I think that while as a whole, most of these teams, kind of stayed pat, the couple moves we did see, I think will make a big difference. I think they were at positions of need. There weren't any moves that were really giant question marks of what are they doing, what are they thinking. Europe had a plan, they stuck to the plan. The groups are almost identical, which is kind of unfortunate, but if we ignore the terrible 10-team 2-group system, which should never be a thing, we ignore the fact that it's going to be a 10-week season, which should never be a thing, and we ignore the fact that there are going to be fewer games each week and for the season as a whole than North America, despite the fact that they have the exact same league size. And Europe has performed better and therefore kind of deserves to have more of a limelight set on them if MSI is to be believed, if Worlds is to be believed, then ignoring all of that, this is going to be fun and exciting, and it's going to be a great quality product. I'm looking forward to it.
It's really bad when the EU analyst on your show is like, I don't really want to pay attention to this. Because that's how it's coming across. I sound way more excited about Europe than you do, and you're supposed to be the European expert. But
I'm getting it all out of the way.
I will say one thing, is that the European content team has been absolutely crushing it with their little minute-long vignettes for each one of for the top 4 teams so far. Those have been fantastic. And North America needs to get their butts together, because the video that they did was It was a video on YouTube. I'll put it that way. I've really enjoyed what Europe has done over the last couple of weeks with those. So if you get a chance, go check out that YouTube channel and watch those after you're done watching every single video here, because your views matter more to me here than they do on LOL Esports' channel. So let's actually get to the nitty-gritty. Let's get to the actual games, and then we'll come back around and we'll actually do all the outrights and everything. A little bit different setup than last year. So Chase, the very first match of the European regular season, H2K versus Splyce.
Yes.
Seems like a weird way to start the year.
Yeah, I think that it's an interesting decision. It comes down to this group system that, as I just maligned, I'm not a particular fan of, but it means that we can't do what has been the traditional setup in the North American and European leagues, which is to have the two finalists duke it out on day one. Have that rematch that everyone can get super hyped on, like, oh man, I can't wait to see another round of this. Well, they're not in the same group, so they don't get to play each other till week 4 through 7, so we can't have that match. But instead, we're going to get a match between two teams that stayed pat. They're the same teams that they were roster-wise last split. And for those of you who remember how that series went down, H2K won 4 games to Splyce's nothing. They crushed Splyce. And so much of that had to do with H2K's ability to just snowball that lead against Trashy. Jankos was a monster. Trashy had no impact in the early game. And it's very hard if you're Splyce. You have to look at where are you going to get outplays on the rest of the map if you're not able to get that jungler going. Is it going to be in the mid lane? Well, Fabivin has been an incredibly consistent player throughout his career. I think Senkux has issues. Is it the top lane? Sure, you would think that would be the case. Wonder certainly a guy that has been a carry threat in the past, and that's what they're going to want to play around. But Odoamne is no slouch, and that 2v2 is going to be difficult for them. It's certainly not a guaranteed thing. Nuclear and Che versus Kabi and Mickey, I think it's close enough in whatever direction that you personally lean towards. I think the meta right now is more Nuclear's favor than it is Mickey in Kabi, I should say. Jhin is not a thing right now, which always makes Kabi a little bit weaker. But I think this is Jankos versus Trashy. And so far, Jankos has crushed Trashy this year, and that has led to H2K crushing Splyce. So if you're going to believe that Splyce is going to bring this back, you've got to believe that Trashy is going to do something differently than what we saw last split. And I mean, I guess that comes down to how comfortable you feel with the champions that we just saw got played in the LCK last night. I mean, certainly they're not the same junglers that we were particularly used to, but it's still not something that I'm willing to say is so out of the realm of Jankos' skill set that I'm expecting him to falter in any meaningful way. So, yeah, I think that it's going to be an underplayed start, understated, I should say. It's not going to be that huge, like, oh yeah, these two teams are rivals that are going to duke it out. I think this could be a clinic as to why H2K is still H2K. But man, if you're Splyce, if you come away with a victory here, that is just so huge for your place in the group stage. I mean, Unicorns of Love are a great team, but that's a team that Splyce has battled a little bit more closely. You know, a lot of the same elements there, and team synergy, communication, going for the team fights. It's closer style-wise. H2K just feels like a hard counter to their style of play. So, that's... I don't know, man.
Man, you can't even get 10 minutes into this episode without disrespecting the second-place team in Europe. I mean, hey, you know, you can think whatever you want, and we'll get to the outrights in a little bit. Yeah, H2K versus Splyce is these two teams did not fare very well at the end of the split. They did not fare very well in the playoffs. This was the fifth 6 teams, basically. They lost to both of their opponents. H2K got crushed by Fnatic. Splyce was more of kind of their mental, game kind of fell apart as they got reverse swept by Misfits. So this definitely is not the series I want to open up with. And now my hype has been brought down because Europe does have these kind of series where they're more of a slog. And that's really what day one is it's going to be these tier 2 teams kind of slogging it out against each other and saying, oh yeah, very first game of the year, we're better than the other guy. but there's still 9 more weeks to go, so we're going to be hearing some teams get hyped up because they happen to beat their counterpart in the first week of the season. Chase, at the end of the day, where do you see the line is for H2K versus Splyce?
Well, I went back and forth on where I put it. Ultimately, it comes down to the question of, do I believe that Trash is going to be better than Jankos at Graves, Lee Sin, or Elise? The answer is no. Therefore, I have to give it firmly in H2K's favor. I have it H2K minus 240.
I'm going to win this one. It is, in fact, I have H2K at minus 200. It is H2K minus 175.
That seems low.
H2K got 3-0'd by Fnatic in the playoffs. You have to remember that the algorithms do take into effect recency bias, and the last time we saw H2K, they didn't look good.
4-0 historically this year. What's the odds for the for minus 1.5 for H2K?
Let me pull that up real quick. Splyce is at plus 135 as the underdog in this. Again, not great, but they're the 5th and 6th team last year, so there is some possibility for a more even series. Yeah, you could do that. I'm just stalling for time. The handicap of Splyce to win a game?
No, H2K to win 2-0. Like they did
Plus
twice
170.
already this year. Plus 170. That's amazing value. They've already done it twice this year. Then it's not like Splyce was close in those maps. Splyce, I mean, H2K's dominant against this team. They seem to be perfect counters to this team. Why should I not take H2K at plus 170? I like that a lot.
Remember that entire thing I said overreacting about like week one game, winning one series? Like that's what you're doing right now.
No.
You just won't even let one game get played.
Look, it's these are the same rosters we saw last spring. I'm not going to ignore what I saw. I'm not going to ignore the fact that
Splyce has gotten a new coach, and if you look at their AMA today, they talk about Yamato Cannon leaving, and they said it was a mutual decision on both parts, that both parties felt there was no more knowledge that Yamato Cannon could impart onto those players. I think that says something. I'm not just going to say, yep, Splyce right off the bat, they're going to get completely 2-0'd. They did make a change. They changed their coach. They changed their analyst staff. They made some changes. I'm not willing to say, yep, 2-0 right off the bat, writing it in stone. I'm just not willing to say that.
That's fine.
But let's look at where else we can get some value. The next series, the biggest argument that Chase and I have had in the offseason is which one of us is overvaluing Fnatic or undervaluing, and which one is overvaluing / undervaluing Misfits, because we had them basically polar opposites in our predictions. So Chase, we saw Fnatic 3-0 Misfits last spring in the playoffs. Misfits obviously changed their jungler. How much of an impact do you think that might have on this series? Do Misfits stand a chance to win this series?
I mean, I think it's a massive impact on the series. I think that when you look at what befell Misfits in the playoffs, in both of their losses in the playoffs, you have to look at two factors. Number one, poor pick and ban decisions. That's something that we cannot say is going to be fixed automatically. We should not assume that Daku is going to improve that aspect of his coaching, if only because we saw those same problems plague them towards the end of the regular season. And what should have plagued them against Splyce, if Splyce doesn't blow their 2-0 lead, no, I'm not over it, no, I'm not over it, no, I'm not over it. But the other thing that really plagued Misfits, and this was the much larger problem, was their communication issues. They looked disjointed. They looked stilted. They looked like a team that did not have a cohesive plan outside of some very predictable early game beats. They're always going to go dive down that bot tower. They're always going to try to push for those little, play around that half of the map. And then they're going to look to take some of those neutral objectives and go from there. And that's what you have to do when your ability to communicate is slowed down by language barriers. If you need to tell Kakao to do something, but it takes an extra 10 seconds to explain that knowledge, you can't make the same kinds of split-second decisions. Now they have Maxor. Now they have a guy that does two things for him. One, he's going to speak the correct language. That's huge. But two, this is a guy who knows how to get his mid laner ahead. And we saw with Misfits, the difference between their wins and their losses was, can Power of Evil get out of his lane and start to roam? Because a roaming Power of Evil is terrifying. The guy was a beast on any of those kinds of champions in which he was able to, roam out, get some picks on assassins, whatever else. That was by far when he looked his best, with his Orianna coming up just slightly beneath that for me before there's a drop off for everything else. He's a very good mid laner. He was my pick for first team All-Pro. I really love him. I want to see what he does out of lane because that's what he's excelled at, and Maxlore should get him there. And that's why I'm excited about this team. And for Fnatic, there's a lot of things that are going their way as well. Obviously, Rekkles is a monster. He was my first team All-Pro AD carry. I think that he was my runner-up for the MVP award for good reason. The guy was a beast. The guy has the ability to play so many different types of champions, and when he's been asked to hard carry for the team, we saw him step up in the playoffs in a huge way. With the Twitch, with the Vayne, with whatever he wanted to throw out there, he clearly felt confident. He built unconventional build paths, reminding me of our good pal Genja back in the day. But you know what? It worked for him, and it had clear strengths, and they were able to rally team fights around it. And you do have Caps who, if they can put him in comfortable situations, he can hold his own. Certainly, he could try to keep Power of Evil at bay. I think that Ceades, as a veteran, should be able to exploit Alphari a little bit. Alphari, great laner, but kind of struggles after the fact. Ceades, known for his map presence and his ability to use those globals effectively. So I think that certainly there are places in which Fnatic can find those edges. It's going to be a very close series. I think people who look at it as the 3-0 it was in the third place match are going to find themselves very surprised to see that Misfits probably isn't going to let Rekkles play Kennen 3 games in a row. No, seriously, they actually did that, the absolute madmen. So that's not going to happen. The series will be closer than it was then. I have a feeling it's going to be particularly close. This is my most hyped series of the week. I cannot wait to see how these two teams butt head-to-head. I think we're going to learn a lot about the title picture from this series. Because I think both of them are going to challenge UOL for that spot. I think they are. Those are the two teams. If Fnatic proves me wrong, or if Misfits proves me right, those are the two people that are going to challenge for that second spot with Unicorns of Love. And I want to see which one of them makes that step.
Okay. Let's not get carried away here, because I know you're super high on Misfits, but you bring up the thing that Maxlore is. It always makes his mid laner better. He's made his mid laner better. He's been on 2 teams where he's made his mid laner better. We have him on Giants when he was with the Knight last summer, and that team, they got the 3 seed. They were all the way up in the 3 seed. There were all those crazy tiebreakers. It was like crazy. The Giants were up in there, and then they completely flamed out in the playoffs. Last split with ROCCAT, up until the end of the season, they almost made the playoffs. They went on that crazy 6-game run, but if they don't go on this crazy 6-game run, there's a chance they're relegated instead of Giants. This metaphor, this thought that he makes his mid laners better, but then the teams aren't able to do anything with that. Maybe that says something about the players that he's around, the teams that are built around him.
I would blame that on the 3 other players on that roster before I would blame it on him. I mean, look, what did Giants Gaming have outside of Maxlore and Knight that summer split? That was not a great team. That was the biggest problem in the playoffs, because people said, hey, let's camp the hell out of Knight, and Giants had no counter answer to that. I mean, I don't blame Maxlore for that. I certainly don't blame Maxlore for the fact that ROCCAT had absolutely no game plan for the first 2/3 of the split, where the coaching just didn't look like they had any sort of cohesive pick and ban strategy. It didn't look like they had a cohesive early game strategy. I don't blame Maxlore as a jungler for that. But let's be clear. Misfits are not going to come in right away and be this 2 seed that I predict them to be by the end of the split. That's not how these things go. They're still going to take some time to have to learn how to integrate Maxlore into their system. They're still going to have to learn how best to utilize Hansama's skill set in a meta that should have heavier emphasis on AD carries. And certainly we saw that a couple utility AD carries were still very much in the Korean meta. We'll see how that applies to the rest of the world. But in all reality, Europe has always been these innovators. I think that Misfits can eventually innovate into that. I think eventually they can use all these players that they have and the skill set to get there, but I don't think they're going to be there on day one. I think that Fnatic, day one, is absolutely ready for this series. I think Rekkles is amazing. I think that Ceades should be able to exploit Alphari, quite a bit. We talk about Alphari being someone that is very good in lane, but has struggled elsewhere. Ceades, much more dominant when it comes to his global usage. So In this series, I think that Fnatic should absolutely be the favorites. I think that it's going to be a closer series because I think that the 3-0 was so one-sided because Daku let Kennen through 3 times. Yes, that was a thing that happened. That was a literal thing that appeared on an LCS stage, and I still have feelings about that. But at the end of the day, I don't think being much closer means that Misfits is able to jump the hurdle yet. That's why I have Misfits at I have Fnatic, excuse me, at minus 155.
All right. Neither of us are gonna get this one. I had Fnatic at minus 250.
Okay.
It is Misfits at minus 125.
What? Unicorn! I know we do this thing every split where it's like, oh, it's a new day, new era. Let's, throw out some interesting choices. What in the world makes that line make sense? I mean, if we're gonna make the argument in game 1, like, oh yeah, H2K, the line has to be lower because they struggled in the playoffs. Okay. Misfits got 3-0'd by Fnatic. The same logic should apply, right? What was in the algorithm that made them say, yeah, Misfits should be favored here? Sure, they got crushed the last time these teams played, but nah, this is clearly Misfits' series to lose.
I mean,
Unicorn, I love you guys. I do.
The only thing I can think of is let me go back to our stats. Misfits were at minus 143 in that playoff series. So this now brings it down a little. I just don't know. This is this is bonkers. This is ridiculous.
I mean, look, shout out to Unicorn for being on my side in our argument. Like, clearly, this is just them having listened to one of this podcast episodes to be like, look, he writes for us. Clearly, he knows what he's talking about. Unicorn, calm down. I might be wrong. I root for ROCCAT and Ceades. I might be wrong here, Just give it some time. But
yeah, and the Atlanta Falcons.
And the Falcons and Good Game University and that one split where I was a fan of Winter Fox, that ended great.
I always
Taipei Assassins. Let's
let's not live in the past with miserable teams. Let's actually talk about a good team. Yes. G2 Esports. Yes. And their foil last split. ROCCAT, a team you do root for. Hey, it comes full circle. ROCCAT were able to beat G2 when they went on that crazy 6-0 run. They were able to break that 400-day G2 undefeated streak or whatever the actual number was. It was around there. Chase, does ROCCAT stand a chance here?
Of course they stand a chance here. Of course they do. Because Expect and Trick aren't playing this week. And that makes a massive difference when it comes to how this goes. I mean, look, as much as I would look at this usually, like, G2 just played an amazing series. They had an amazing run at MSI. Perks looks the best he's ever looked, and that's going to make the bottom of the half of the map dangerous, especially because I think Sven and Mithy are still significantly better than Hjarnan and Wadid on a 2-on-2 basis. Mm-hmm. But the entire top half of the map is now in question for G2. First of all, having EULCS in as your jungler, 2 problems there. Number 1, junglers are a very important position, and Trick is clearly someone who forms most of their early to mid-game shot calling. He is so much of the factor in terms of controlling resources, getting that jungle ready to go, and starving the enemy jungler of those resources, making sure that he gets his lanes ahead. I don't trust EULCS to make those decisions in the slightest, and I certainly don't think the communication is going to be there that sets him up to do that on autopilot with the rest of the team. And second of all, it's EULCS. EULCS is really bad at League of Legends. Look, if you're a EULCS fan, I mean, first of all, shout out to you. That is dedication. That's
misery. That's what that is.
I mean,
that is awful.
Masochism, but at the same time, if you believe in the guy, that's awesome. But specifically, he has always been bad at carry champions. And while we thought that tanky junglers were going to come into the meta, it turns out that Graves, Lee Sin, Elise, they're still good. And they're still being played. And that's much more in Pridestalker's wheelhouse, which is great for Pridestalker because as a ROCCAT fan, I know he needs a couple warm-up series to get some of his legs underneath him in the LCS stage. The guy is raw. He does not have a ton of competitive experience. He didn't even start the full season for Misfits Academy. The guy has shown a very select group of junglers with which he's very competent, but he hasn't shown a lot of versatility, and he certainly hasn't demonstrated that he has the ability to understand the macro decisions at play in the way that he would need to. In the same way, Faxi is still a developing young talent. The guy is very good. I think his ceiling is great. I think his Gnar in particular is one of the most fun things that I watched last season. I loved seeing his use of that timing and really making sure that he was constantly in that playmaking mode. But the guy doesn't necessarily have the same understanding of global usage that someone like Expect would. Now he doesn't have to worry about that. Now he plays Sendu, who is a guy who I would put under the Mendoza line for LCS top laners. This is a guy who's on one of G2's sister teams and really has very little experience, if any experience, outside of the Spanish-specific Challenger League. So I don't expect much from this G2 roster in terms of that half of the map. The question really becomes, is G2's bottom half of the map that strong? Can Perks, Sven, and Mithy carry the series on their own? And the answer is, of course they can. It's Perks, Sven, and Mithy. Two of those three guys are playing the best League of Legends they have at any point in their career, and the third guy is just 1 or 2 series away from putting himself back out there as this amazing engaged support. So, yeah, I still think G2 should be favored, but ROCCAT has a chance. Of course they have a chance.
Well, you think they have a chance, Chase? I wonder how much of a chance you actually give your homeboys, your team, your pride and joy. So where do you think the line is on this? Because obviously it's ROCCAT minus something, right?
I mean, look, I had G2 minus 400, partly because I think that should be where the line is just based off of their great MSI performance, and partly because I didn't think Unicorn was going to take the fact that Sendu and Lulex were playing that much into account. That's not something that we've seen a lot of when it comes to those roster adjustments because it's very hard to do. So I have G2 minus 400.
Well, we're both going to get a point because I also said G2 minus 400, and it is actually G2 minus 384. So we both almost nailed it. Like, nice. That's about as good as we could do. However, I did it with the expectation that Expect and Trick were playing because I totally forgot Lulex and Cedro were gonna play.
Yeah, Sendu.
So,
yeah,
Sendu. So
what's the ROCCAT underdog line there?
ROCCAT underdog is at plus 265, and what's a little more interesting to me now that I have more context, 3 maps is at plus 125. It's very, very possible that 3 maps happens. Very likely.
That's almost certainly going to happen, but I like that ROCCAT value too, man. ROCCAT has already won this series against all 5 of their starters.
So Chase,
it's not likely.
No, this isn't how hedging works, Chase. That's not how hedging works. You don't go all in on your favorite team when there's some nice odds for it. You have to bet against your favorite team so they win. That's how it works.
You know what, man? I set my own rules. Hashtag set the rules. I don't need to follow that. I don't need to hedge.
New podcast rule. Just like with High Moon, the next person to say set the rules is getting kicked off the show.
Commenters, you know what to do. You know what to do. Just spam that. Get your pride going, guys. ROCCAT hype.
Speaking of pride, I'm gonna share my pride right here. My pride and joy, the Unicorns of Love. Because unlike you, I refuse to underestimate this team any longer. I refuse to put anyone else up in the stratosphere with a team that did happen to take a game off of G2 in the finals. They have improved against G2. And Chase, you can underestimate them as much as you want, but we have learned way too much what underestimating the Unicorns of Love means for our wallets, for our hearts, and for the rest of Europe as a whole, because they got to their second finals in their history. They got their second finals. They looked great. Their top laner won the MVP away from the evil empire that is known as Trick Nunu. Like, they have an MVP player. They have the best young talent in Europe in Xerxes. Like, how can you underestimate this team again?
I love that picking them to go third is underestimating.
That is underestimating them.
It's one spot different than you.
It's underestimating.
Look, this team is a very good team. I'm excited to see how Unicorns of Love try to adapt and improve upon what they built last split. I think that certainly there's a lot of potential there. Xerxes in particular is a guy that strikes me as the next great EU talent. I mean, the guy was a monster last split. He's clearly been a playmaker for them. He enables so many of their other options, specifically with the way that he's able to gank for Vizicachi. Their synergy is off the charts, and it just enabled so many plays around the top half of the map that really enabled this Unicorns of Love skirmish playstyle. It allowed them to pressure things like early Barons and really force their opponents to make really tough decisions. And what they did with that was really control the map. Their ability to manipulate their lanes was by far the best in the league. 51.6% lane efficiency, which is kind of nuts. The team is really good at making sure that there is always a wave pushing in their favor, so that every time they win a fight, no matter how slightly they win that fight, they get an objective off of it. And they've realized that winning a fight, a bloody fight, but getting an objective is better than winning a clean fight and having nothing to do afterwards, because you don't have, the death timers are too low and the waves aren't pushing in your favor and you can't do anything with it. So to be clear, Unicorns of Love are great. Great team. They are going to be the favorites here, and they should be. But I don't think that it is the right call to completely wipe out Vitality from conversations about being at least competitive in this series because of two things. Number one, Yamato Cannon. We all agree that at least in the first split in which he joins a team, there is a noticeable increase in quality from them. First split with Splyce, you saw the growth that team had with him. You saw the growth that ROCCAT had during his brief stint there. The guy's a good coach, and he should help get some of these fundamentals that they were clearly missing in their overall macro strategy. And the second thing is Vander's here. And I love Vander. I will always give my shout out to that guy. He and Jankos are two of my favorite players and will be until the end of time. But he is a veteran playmaking shot caller. These are three things that you could argue that, Vitality desperately needed. They need someone who isn't just a guy who's been around, but a guy who has succeeded, a guy who has won on a big stage and understands what it takes to get there. They need a guy who can shot call, who can come up with a cohesive strategy, because this team had none last split. They had three hard carried players and no idea of who should be carrying when and at what time, and what a cohesive pick and ban phase would look like in that regard. And you have a playmaker. You have someone who can go out of their way, get some roams going, shake things up, and not put all of that pressure onto Joko, who had a very good split for a young jungler, a guy who led the league in first blood percentage, and it wasn't particularly close. I think it was something like 65%, which is obscene for an entire split for a player that no one expected to be a star, and certainly wasn't one by any means. But, I mean, the guy had a good understanding of the early game, and now you're pairing him with Vander, who has an even better understanding of the early game. Man, those three-man death roams could be a thing. Is it going to be enough to beat Unicorns of Love? Of course not. Of course it's not going to beat Unicorns of Love.
Or Yamato Cannon has not had to deal with a team that is this full of ego. He has dealt with Nuke Duck and Vander in the past, but he's never had to deal with Steelback or Cabochard. We've heard a lot of rumors about how some of these teams operate. The thought of this roaming death squad, I also don't agree that that's going to happen, because these laners are so dead set on just sitting in their lane and farming and farming and farming and farming. There are not proactive TP plays that come out of Cabochard. There just aren't. And against a team like Unicorns of Love, if you're not going to be proactive against them, they will murder you, because they will force you to make decisions. They will go after you. They should not be called the Unicorns of Love. They should be called like the Dogs of Hell or something, because of the way they chase you down and they bite at your heels until you finally go down and they can maul you. This is a great team led by their MVP top laner and their young stud of a jungler. I just refuse to back down and look at anyone other than G2, or maybe one of those next four teams as anyone that truly can compete with them, and certainly not Vitality. Certainly not Vitality, and certainly not on day 2 of the European LCS.
Oh, yeah. To be clear, Unicorns of Love are winning this series. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a close series. I think we might see some glimpses of where Vitality is trying to get to by the end of the season. And I want to see it. I want to see them start to utilize Vander better. I want to see more proactive decisions from them, because you're 100% right. If they just sit back and let the Unicorns of Love dictate the pace of the game, this is going to be over, and it's going to be bloody and brutal and just kind of sad to watch, because it's going to be so one-sided. And it very well could be that way. I just have hope that Vitality understood that their old system wasn't working, and that's why they brought Yamato Cannon in, and therefore they're going to try some things. And they're not all going to succeed. It's going to take a while for any one of those plans to cohesively come through. But if they can at least start trying some things, they have hope for their future. It's not going to be enough this series. Unicorns of Love minus 280. This should be pretty one-sided.
Unicorns of Love minus 300. That was my guess. Chase, you win this one. It is Unicorns of Love minus 277.
Yes.
Lucky dog of hell, you.
You forgot to take off the 20 points that Unicorn and all casinos take away from Unicorns of Love, because I don't know. Unicorns
It's okay.
of Love.
I'll be getting them back in a little while. Don't you worry about that. But before we get to that, we still have 2 more games to go. And first up, H2K versus Mysterious Monkeys. Chase, you were pretty down on the Mysterious Monkeys.
Yeah.
Throughout our team by team preview, you had them as your last place team. What's their path to victory against H2K? How could they beat H2K if they were gonna pull off a surprising win here?
Could they bribe Yankos into not destroying the incredibly raw, basically a rookie? Even if he had played in the Challenger Series, he would have been seen as a rookie at that level of play, Llama Bear. Because without that, I don't know how Mysterious Monkeys win the series. I mean, the just disparity in talent, in experience, in macro understanding at that position in particular is something that should be horrifying for any Mysterious Monkeys fan. This is not a nice welcome into the LCS. You know, they played a Vitality or a Splyce. I could see it. You know, those teams prefer going to the mid to late game. That would give Mysterious Monkeys some time to try some things. They could try to throw in some weird ganks to the bot lane and see what Yuki can do. They could try to make some weird TP plays with Jisoo and throw people off guard. But, I mean, there is very little that they should be able to do against H2K Gaming if H2K Gaming brings their A game. Cosq should not be able to hold up against Fabiven. Fabiven is by far the more consistent player at this point. Cosq was struggling against challenger level mid laners. I don't expect that to change overnight. I think that so much of the meta is still in H2K's favor, whereas Mysterious Monkeys, I think, would really benefit from a meta change that would put Yuki more in control, that would put Cosq in a more comfortable place, that would put Jisoo in a more comfortable place. This is a very young team, and the fact that they're going to lose 2-0 in this series is not going to mean that they are doomed forever until the end of time. This is what I think a lot of fans can sometimes lose track of. And I've seen YouTube comments that say this, like, oh man, analysts are always so mean to new rosters. Like, no, we're not trying to be mean. We just understand that these things take time. If the Mysterious Monkeys could come in with all of the warts that they showed in the promotion tournament and the challenger playoffs and all of that, and just wreck faces in week 1, that would say so many negative things about the European scene as it stands right now. The H2K Gaming is a very good team. They might even be a great team, depending on how they take advantage of their potential this split. I have them at very good. I don't have them at great yet, but there are people who do, and I understand where they're coming from. They were great in the regular season last split, which is the kind of environment they're going to be in here. It just takes time. And do I think the Mysterious Monkeys can get there? I mean, maybe. If Cosq becomes the guy that we thought he was going to be in 2016, back when in 2015 he really impressed us, if Llama Bear ends up being this top-tier young jungle talent, that would be huge. But right now, I'm going to bank on the sure thing over a team that looks like a yacht of young, unproven pieces that need a lot more experience with the LCS macro game. They made some very clear mistakes, and even in their victories in terms of how they played around the map. And that doesn't get fixed overnight. That gets fixed by scrimming better teams than them and losing on the LCS stage and learning from those losses and adapting what it was that other teams use to beat them and using it themselves. Give them time to breathe. Give them time to grow and change. Give unlimited time to really grow into this head coaching role. But please, please do not go into week 1 and tell me that Mysterious Monkeys are going to stand in the toe, head to head against H2K Gaming on day 1. That is something that I think is far too far in the other direction.
Entirely fair. I don't want my hopes and dreams to die. I don't want them to be memes. But their names are Mysterious Monkeys, and they have 2 M's in their name, which means obviously all my hopes and dreams are memes because there's 2 M's in both of those. Chase,
yes.
Where's the line on this one?
I went conservative on this and the next line. I feel like it probably betrayed me here, but I just said, look, we don't know who these challenger teams are, so I should just put it at -400 for H2K Gaming. That is the standard you are favored by a lot line. I'm worried it might be too low.
Yeah, you're too low. I'm too low, and I said H2K at -666 because I don't know. The Mysterious Monkey logo kind of looks like Satan if he was a monkey. I just went -666.
I love it.
It's actually H2K -769. Mysterious Monkeys are at +450 as underdogs. And if you were going to be like, well, Walter, what about an H2K 2-0 since Chase brought that up? Well, Chase, I'm so glad you brought it up because I've looked up that line, and that's -166.66666. So even the H2K 2-0 is considered the favorite in the series. Stay away. You can't make money on this. Just stay away. It's not worth something fluky happening and you losing a 2-0, your 2-0 bet because Jankos lost his brain or got locked in the bathroom and they had to play 4v5. There's no value here. Stay away.
Stay away.
Speaking of no value, Fnatic versus Ninjas in Pyjamas. Chase, we've talked about Fnatic. Ninjas in Pyjamas, the only team that we haven't talked about. I don't know. Gush about Profit or something.
I love how many people are low on Profit, man. And I think, I always say, I read every single comment. I haven't responded to as many as I'd like, but that's because I'm working on an article that hopefully you guys are going to be seeing very soon. But I just love this idea of like, oh yeah, this Profit guy, like he, what has he done? Why should we believe that he's going to turn out to be this great player? SK Telecom is a system that understands how to make use of talent and make the most out of it. Even before he was playing on the starting roster and getting his few reps that he did, the guy had been working within the SKT system. They were watching him very closely as he performed in solo queue. The guy is a monster, according to everybody that has ever played against him. Whether that translates to the big stage, well, it translated so far for him. Granted, on a limited champion pool, and not necessarily champions that we're going to be seeing in this current meta, but it's not irrelevant. Those 9 or 10 games, we can't just say, oh, well, he was on SKT. SKT has lost games, guys. SKT lost multiple series last split. You can punish anybody who brings a truly weak player in. The guy did very well. The guy looked like a young, promising talent. Is he better than Huni? Of course not. Huni's one of the best 3 top laners in the game right now. But if Profit is a top, let's say 20 top laner, then SKT would still let him go and he could still be a monster in North America or Europe. Now, is he going to be that guy? I don't know. I don't think this team is going to be a team that lets him show off that laning ability if he could be that guy. Shook is certainly not going to be doing him any favors in a 2v2 in the top lane. That's not going to help. I don't think that I trust Hikyu's engages or team fighting or anything about Hikyu at all helping him out. And Spraddle, I think the less said about Spraddle, the better. So it's very hard for me to see a world in which Profit truly gets to shine in a way that some other Korean imports have gotten to shine. This isn't a position like Lyra in the jungle where you can really make a lot of solo plays that look super nice. That's just not how top lane works most of the time. But he should be fun to watch. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he goes up against Ceades, because Ceades is one of the few top laners that if you wanted to get a solo outplay, Ceades will go toe-to-toe with you. He believes he can win every 1v1 trade. He has shown that he has no problem dueling until both top laners die, which we saw multiple times last split. And Prophet, I think, is more intelligent in the laning phase. Will that translate after the laning phase? Probably not. Fnatic is a much more cohesive strategy to them. They have a lot more synergy. They have a lot more experience playing together. But I'm looking forward to seeing how Prophet holds up against Ceades. I want to see if he proves me right, or if he proves a lot of the commenters who are saying I'm getting too hyped about him and I should be ignoring the challenger stuff, which is fair. Solo queue doesn't necessarily mean all that much. I should be ignoring what all of the teams that have played against him and all the kind of things behind the surface, these rumors bubbling up that he's a very good player, which I'm less convinced by that. I think Korean teams don't really talk up players like Prophet if they didn't see something in the guy. Mm-hmm. But we'll see. I'm very much looking forward to that. Not so much looking forward to any of the rest of this, because this should be a blowout at every other position on the map. Even if you like Nagne, which I kind of do, despite myself. I'm not saying I should, I'm just saying I do. Caps is better right now at this point in his career. And unless there's some miracle Nagne resurgence, which would be kind of fun in a ridiculous way, this should be a blowout for Fnatic.
It doesn't matter, because Ninjas in Pyjamas head coach is Nico the Pico. Chase!
I know, it's really bad.
Chase, you need this line to prevent me from going 1-up. And obviously, if I win this one, then obviously I'm going to be the champion. We gotta just use 1 week to determine absolutely everything about how the season's going to go. So Chase, roll the dice, buddy. Where do you think this line is?
I went too low. I already put the point for you in my notes, because I know I'm mad at myself. I really have no one to blame but myself. I said Fnatic minus 400. Like I said, that is the standard line when you're clearly better than the other team, but we don't know by how much yet. And I have completely spaced just how much this is going to be favored against challenger teams, because challenger teams are not given any credit when they first enter the season. So tell me how wrong I am. Let me know.
This isn't even the challenger team that won the spot. There's not a single player that qualified for this spot on this team.
Sure.
So you can't even use that argument. This is 5 random players that have never played together before, all thrown onto a team. It's a major problem. The point's already on my board. You said minus 400. I said minus 450. It is minus 769.
Okay. So
Fnatic minus 769.
You were that much closer than
Doesn't
me.
matter. A point's a point. I didn't realize which way they were going to go with Ninjas in Pyjamas. And now that we're going to get to the outrights, because I've already won the week, we're going to get to some outrights, and we're really going to see where they place Ninjas in Pyjamas.
Are we not doing smart money bets, or are we doing those at the end?
We need to do smart money bets.
Yeah,
let's do smart money bets first.
I want H2K plus 170 at minus 1.5. I'm fighting for that one.
Okay. I'll say okay, because I haven't seen much value anywhere else. Then I'm going to say Fnatic at minus 105.
Yeah, that's fine. Do we want to do, I'm happy, since you're meeting me halfway on that one, I'll meet you halfway there. What about ROCCAT G2? Do we want to bet against EULCS? Because I feel like betting against EULCS seems like a really nice, fun
The real
play.
question is, do we want to go big and say ROCCAT win the series, or do we just go small and just say it's a 3-game series?
I say, for the sake of our viewers at home, given what we know about our European pets last split, let's go 3 maps plus 125.
You totally swerved me. I thought you were saying go big.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
I saw what happened to us last split. I saw the tapes. They're on our YouTube channel. I want to go a little bit more conservative in Europe to start out the season. Maybe later we'll go for swing for the fences if we need to. But for right now, let's take the 3 maps, because I do believe that EULCS and Sendu will lose them at least 1 map. And if you're like me and you believe that this ROCCAT team could be very good, and you're like me and you believe that EULCS could be just terrible and that Sendu probably won't be much better, then I would consider plus 265. We're not putting in a smart money bet, but it's going to get the Chase seal of approval. Maybe we can get a separate graphic for that. I don't know. Just imagine that this is a stamp. I'm stamping it as my seal of approval here.
Nick, put down a note. We need a Chase stamp of approval.
Yes.
Yeah, I know I've got you working on a million other things. Yeah, I want that at the top of the list right after you run and get me some Subway.
Got it.
Yeah, you know my order. Perfect. Wonderful. Nick's going to take care of that. We're going to get one of those big rubber animated stamps or something like that. With that said and done, our 3 smart money bets for the very first week of the European LCS. H2K to go 2-0 over Splyce at plus 170. Fnatic to beat Misfits at minus 105. And G2 versus ROCCAT to go 3 maps at plus 125 with the you're not dumb if you take ROCCAT to go plus 265 over G2. It's just a little risky.
Yes.
That being said, now that we got all that out of the way, we're going to go to some outrights real quick. I really love outrights because I made a boatload of money off of them last split. It's great. It's fantastic, other than me choosing that one team to win that we'll not talk about. That being said, Chase, I think we know who the favorite to win is to win the European LCS.
It's ROCCAT,
Would you like
right?
to? Yeah, it's ROCCAT. Absolutely. Yeah. Would you like to guess what ROCCAT's line is then to win the LCS?
Well, I think G2 is the actual favorite. Yes. I'm gonna say plus 150.
It is actually plus 100.
Wow.
Yes.
We're not even gonna pretend, huh?
That is almost SKT level line. That is almost an SKT level line for this.
I think that might be more than SKT level line.
No, it's not. SKT is is minus 119.
To win the outright? Oh, okay.
To win LCK outright. That being said, Chase, would you like to hazard a guess at who number 2 is on the list?
Unicorns of Love.
That is correct, and they are at plus 450. Who is number 3 on the list?
Oh, this is going to be interesting. My heart says it's Fnatic, but I'm actually going to say H2K.
It is H2K at plus 500. They are now followed up by Misfits at plus 1,000. Fnatic at plus 1,200.
Wait, hold on. Stop it right there. So you're telling me that Unicorn has decided that my theory that Misfits is going to be better than Fnatic this split by the end of the split is co-signed here? I thought this was like my corner. I thought I was like, this was my unpopular opinion.
Chase,
based on
Chase, they had Misfits to beat Fnatic in week 1. Of course, they had Misfits over Fnatic in the outrights.
I mean, that's not always been the case. That has not always been the case. But yeah, I'm not alone, and I don't know whether that makes me feel better or worse.
That should make you feel worse because it doesn't matter what their odds are. They aren't winning when G2 exists. Moving on, Fnatic at plus 1,200, Splyce at plus 1,400, Vitality at plus 1,600, Chase, ROCCAT is at plus 3,300.
Whoa! How dare you? Vitality? Wait, it's like 1,500 points more than Vitality?
Yep.
Oh, come on.
Yep.
Stop it.
Mysterious Monkeys at plus 4,000. And Ninjas in Pyjamas are 10th at plus 6,600. That's for the winners. That's for who you think are going to win. I think Unicorns of Love has some tremendous value on that again. I like that. I like that one a lot. To make the playoffs, Splyce is the low man. They are the 6th team, basically. They are at minus 111. Then it has Vitality at plus 100. ROCCAT at plus 350.
Stop. That's some value right there.
That is some tremendous value right there.
That's some really great value. Plus 350 for them to sneak their way in when they were 1 series away last split. And it's all the momentum that came from that second half of the split. Absolutely, we take that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm writing that one down.
Mysterious Monkeys at plus 400. Ninjas in Pyjamas at plus 500.
Okay.
Only interested in the ROCCAT line.
Yes.
Only team, I think, out of those other 4 that could make the playoffs. I have no faith in Vitality at all. For Group A, Chase, would you like to hazard a guess at what G2's odds are to win Group A?
Minus 250?
It is minus 333.
Okay.
Misfits are 2nd at plus 600. Fnatic at plus 800. ROCCAT at plus 2,000. Ninjas in Pyjamas at plus 3,300. Moving on.
Unicorn don't play. Unicorn
don't play. Now, Chase.
Yes.
Group B.
Yes.
Would you like to guess Unicorn of Love's odds to win Group B?
plus 150.
It is plus 165, and they are tied with H2K.
Huh. See, this is my point. The Unicorns of Love have a higher outright chance than H2K, but their group outright winner is even. Like, it's not always as lined up as you would think, which is kind of what makes some of these things fascinating. If you really like H2K, you get more value out of going H2K on both of those bets than you do from, like, you can hedge the Unicorns of Love if you wanted, plus 165, or go, H2K and hedge the other direction. It's kind of interesting. I'm very curious how that happened. But, cool.
No idea. Splyce is at plus 500, Vitality at plus 700, Mysterious Monkeys plus 2,000.
Okay.
I, of course, think that's only a one-horse race. I think Unicorns of Love are head and shoulders above the other ones, and I'm going to be making a lot of money off of the Unicorns of Love again this split. Thank you so much, Unicorn. You guys are so nice.
Yeah, so that's two, like, if we're going to do smart money bets for the outrights, ROCCAT plus 350 to make the playoffs.
Yep.
Unicorns of Love plus 165 to win Group B. I think we both agree on that.
Yep.
And
Unicorns of Love plus 450 to win Europe.
Oh, you want to do that? Yeah.
Well, I'm personally going to do it, and I personally made almost 10,000 unicorns last spring. So,
well, that's the Walter seal of approval.
That is the big Walter, and that is the only seal of approval that you should care about, because your Guess the Lines World Heavyweight Champion is up 1 point right now, and all we know is that week 1 is the only thing that matters. So I've already retained my belt for the rest of the summer. That's great. Moving on, that has been a podcast. That has been week 1 of the European LCS. Man, this is going to be a great year. I can't wait. I can't wait for week 2. I can't wait for week 3. I can't wait for week 9, and then we go into the week 10, and then we go into the playoffs, and then it's the road to Worlds, and then obviously European team is going to win Worlds because they're better than North America. North America should just pack it in. Wait a minute. I'm the North American analyst. What am I going to be doing all summer?
Hey, man.
You guys can find me at Ceades_LOL. Chase, where can the good folks at home find you?
First of all, we always need more wild card analysts, man. We need to give these minor regions
like Taiwan
the analysis sake. Yeah. Oh, shut up. Come on now. You can find me at RedShirtKing. I love keeping these conversations going with you guys. I will read all the comments. I will respond to as many of them as I can. And we love talking to you guys on Twitter. We love talking to you guys on our Discord. We love talking to you guys all over the place. So please feel free to reach out and let's keep these conversations going. There's a lot of fun coming our way.
Absolutely. And if you haven't checked out, we did release our European predictions today. Quick, short, like 20-something minute video where we just bang, 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 go through the order of which we think teams are going to finish. And you guys can use that to help with your outright predictions of who you might think might win. See if there's some value in there. I know Chase would have loved to say a value bet would have been Misfits to win, but he would have been absolutely wrong. And of course, our North American Guess the Lines and a prediction episode for them as well will be up on our YouTube and our SoundCloud tomorrow, which is Thursday, which is the very first game of European League of Legends action for the summer. So, until then, goodbye, Internet.
You can follow the Rough Drafts Podcast on all your favorite social media sites. Twitter at Rough Drafts Pod, Facebook.com/Rough Drafts Pod, SoundCloud.com/Esports Rough Drafts, YouTube.com/Rough Drafts Podcast, as well as on iTunes by searching for the Rough Drafts Podcast. The Rough Drafts Podcast is supported by our lovely Patreons at Patreon.com/Rough Drafts Pod, and by viewers like you. Thanks for listening, and goodbye, Internet.